Responsibility, a word that we hear every day. We are told that we should be responsible for the environment, politics, finances, and of course, for our own lives. But what does it mean, and why do we need it? Today we have more duties than rights, and society demands more responsibility from us. In relationships, we bear responsibility for our family and children. Children bear responsibility for their studies and behavior. It seems that responsibility is something imposed, related to duty or service. But is it really so? Maybe responsibility is a personal and voluntary choice that every person needs to make. In this video, I offer you to figure out what responsibility is and why it is necessary for a person. And also, I will tell you about 5 Stoic rules that will help you become more responsible. This means that you will learn to control yourself and not complain or justify yourself. Stoicism is an ancient philosophy that teaches how to live in harmony with yourself and the world. Stoics were wise and strong people who took responsibility for their lives. Their teaching is still relevant and influences many areas of knowledge and practice. Therefore, Stoicism can be the foundation for your development of responsibility and happiness. Do not miss this important and useful information that can change your life. Are you ready to learn the secrets of responsibility? Then let's begin. Rule number 0. Understand what responsibility is. Responsibility is the awareness and acceptance of the consequences of your actions. It is not only fulfilling your duties and promises, but also controlling your emotions, desires, and behavior. Responsibility can vary depending on the sphere of activity. For example, legal responsibility is compliance with laws and rules. Social responsibility is taking into account the interests and needs of others. Professional responsibility is the quality and efficiency of work. Responsibility can also be personal or collective. Collective responsibility is when the whole group accepts the consequences for the actions of one or several of its members. Our main topic today is personal responsibility for our lives. This is very important because our life consists of many aspects, such as comfort, health, relationships, values, ideas, and so on. In each of these aspects, we constantly face choices and decisions. Every choice and decision in our life has consequences. Responsibility is the ability to accept and work with these consequences. Remember that the situation you are in now is the result of your decisions and actions. If you deny this, you refuse to take responsibility. If you refuse to take responsibility, you allow someone or something to control your life. In this case, you lose the right to happiness, dignity, freedom, goals, and aspirations. All you have left is to look for the guilty, then hate the world and depression. Ignoring responsibility is like playing roulette and waiting for a win. You hope for the lucky number 7, but if you are unlucky, you blame the ball or the roulette. Unfortunately, they obey the laws of physics and mathematical theory of probability. For them, your wishes, dreams, and goals are empty sounds. You may win once out of 1,000 attempts, but you are unlikely to have enough resources for that many attempts. And if your bet is not money, but for example, years of your life and future opportunities, now it looks like a crazy game with the risk of losing everything. In real life, everything is much more complicated, but people stop thinking and start playing crazy games. Then they shift their responsibility to the universe, God, devil, luck, or other people. Therefore, let us consider the following rules that will teach us how to perceive responsibility correctly. Rule number 1, Memento Mori, or remember death. This rule reminds us of the nature of human beings. Our life and our opportunities are limited. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoics and Roman emperors, said, "Do not live as if you have 10,000 years left. Your fate is near. While you live, while you can, be good." This means that we should act now, not postponing our affairs and desires for later. Marcus Aurelius did not mention the striving to be worthy in vain at the end of the phrase. This is a clear reminder of personal responsibility for one's life. Today we bear different kinds of responsibility: social, legal, professional, etc. Some of us cope with them well, and some experience difficulties and suffering. Now is not the time to argue whether this responsibility is imposed on us or we voluntarily accepted it. Unfortunately, the crazy game has begun, and our task is to win. So we understand that our time and resources are limited. So the first thing to do is to make an inventory of responsibility. Analyze what situation you are in now. Write down on paper all kinds of your responsibility that lie on you now. Determine which responsibility you are fine with and which one you have problems with. Remember that responsibility is closely related to decision-making. Therefore, where you have problems, think about what decisions you need to make today. If it concerns your health, then maybe you need to see a doctor, adjust your diet, or do some physical activity. If it concerns your family, then maybe you need to start a conversation and find compromises. Remember that taking responsibility is not only acknowledging the consequences, but also trying to improve the situation. Therefore, try to solve the accumulated problems as soon as possible, which do not require much time and resources. This way, you will gradually regain your dignity and control over your life. Even small, useful changes will open up great opportunities over time. Rule number 2, take responsibility step by step. Often people take on duties that they cannot cope with, which leads to disappointment and losses. Imagine that you want to build a house. You cannot start with the roof or walls without having a foundation and a plan. You have to start small. Choose a plot, develop a project, buy materials, hire workers. Each stage requires your attention and decision. If you try to do everything at once, you risk getting a poor and unsafe house, or not finishing it at all. The same is true for responsibility. You cannot take on too many obligations without having experience and confidence. You have to learn to take responsibility step by step, doing what you can and not being afraid to ask for help or advice when you need it. This way, you will gradually develop your skill of responsibility, and over time you will be able to take on more and more and do it successfully. Remember that responsibility does not mean that you have to do everything yourself. You can cooperate with other people if it helps you achieve your goal. The main thing is that you are honest with yourself and do not overestimate your abilities. Rule number 3, distinguish what is in your power and what is not. Do not waste your strength and time on what does not depend on you, but focus on what you can control and change. This rule can be compared to a journey on a ship. When you sail across the sea, you cannot control the weather, the waves, the current, the sharks, and other dangers. You can only hope that they will not prevent you from reaching your destination. But you can control your ship, your crew, your course, your supplies, your mood. You can prepare for the journey, choose a reliable ship, hire experienced sailors, study the map, stock up on provisions, entertain yourself and your comrades. You can do everything that is in your power to make your journey pleasant and successful. But what if your ship crashes? What if you lose all your property, your friends, your goal? Will you regret your failure, blame fate, give up? Or will you look for new opportunities, accept new challenges, build a new life? Here you can take an example from Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. He was a wealthy merchant who sailed across the sea, trading various goods. Once his ship got into a storm and crashed on the rocks. Zeno lost all his wealth, his career, his goal. He found himself on the shore in a foreign country, without money, without friends, without a future. But he did not despair. He did not regret his past, but started thinking about his present, taking responsibility for his life. He did not blame the sea, but thanked it. He did not give up, but started looking. He went to a bookstore where he saw a book about Socrates, the great philosopher. He was interested in this book and asked the seller where he could find such people as Socrates. The seller pointed him to Crates, who was walking down the street. Zeno followed him, and so his new life began. Zeno began to study philosophy with Crates and other teachers. He began to ask himself questions about the meaning of life, about virtue, about happiness. He began to develop his mind, his will, his soul. He began to apply his knowledge and practice, living in accordance with his nature, according to his reason. He began to teach other people his philosophy, founding the school of Stoicism. He became one of the most respected and influential philosophers of his time. He became a happy and successful person. He did all this because he was able to distinguish what was in his power and what was not. He did not waste his strength and time on what did not depend on him, but focused on what he could control and change. He took responsibility for his life and made it a work of art. Rule number 4. Amorfati, love your fate. This rule can be compared to the attitude towards the mirror. When you look at your reflection, you see yourself as you are. You cannot change your height, eye color, nose shape, or other features of your face. You can only accept your appearance and love it, or hate it and suffer from it. If you accept your appearance, you can emphasize your merits, take care of yourself, smile, and be satisfied. If you hate your appearance, you can try to hide your flaws, compare yourself with others, frown and be unhappy. The same is true for your fate. You cannot change your past, your origin, your circumstances, or other factors that do not depend on you. You can only accept your fate and love it, or hate it and suffer from it. If you accept your fate, you can see meaning, opportunities, lessons, and gratitude in it. If you hate your fate, you can see injustice, obstacles, suffering, and pity in it. To love your fate in the context of responsibility for your life means to stop complaining and accept reality. This does not mean to resign yourself to what you cannot change, but to respect what you cannot change. This does not mean to give up what you can change, but to focus on what you can change. This does not mean to be indifferent to what life brings you, but to be grateful for what life brings you. Here you can take an example from Epicus, an ancient Greek philosopher Stoic. He was a slave in Rome, where his master beat him and broke his leg. Epicus did not complain about his life, but tried to become a free person in his mind and soul. Epicus understood that life conditions were difficult, but he took responsibility for his life and tried to work with these consequences. He studied philosophy with Musonius Rufus, who taught him to distinguish what was in his power and what was not. He realized that he could not control his body, his position, his master, but he could control his thoughts, his feelings, his actions. He learned to love his fate, seeing in it an opportunity to develop his virtue, his wisdom, his strength. Epicus used his fate to gain wisdom and a deep understanding of life. Once he was freed from slavery, he founded his own philosophical school, became one of the most respected and influential philosophers of his time. He did all this because he was able to love his fate, accept reality, and take responsibility. He did not waste his strength and time on suffering and complaints, but focused on what he could control and change. Rule number 5, self-sufficiency and moderation. This rule can be compared to a hike in the mountains. When you walk along the mountain trail, you cannot expect to find the amenities and entertainment that you are used to seeing in the city. You have to be ready for the fact that you will have to live in a tent, eat dry rations, drink from a stream, go to the toilet in nature. You have to be confident in your strength, your skills, your equipment. You have to be modest and content with what you have and not desire what you do not have. But this does not mean that you cannot enjoy your hike. On the contrary, you can get more pleasure from it than from any other type of recreation. You can admire the beauty of nature, breathe fresh air, listen to the birds singing, feel the adrenaline from overcoming difficulties. You can communicate with your friends who are going with you, share with them your thoughts, your emotions, your impressions. You can be happy and successful by your own criteria. Being self-sufficient and moderate is strongly related to responsibility for your life. This means that you should not rely on circumstances or luck, but rely on your inner resources, which you can develop. This also means that you should not pursue excesses and luxury, which you cannot afford, but live in accordance with your needs and abilities. You should not be a slave to your passions and desires, which you cannot satisfy, but learn to manage them reasonably and virtuously. Examples of applying this rule in different spheres of life can be as follows. Example, in education, you should not depend on grades, diplomas, praise, or criticism, but learn for yourself, for your development and self-realization. You should not strive to know everything or to know nothing. You can choose the areas of knowledge that interest and benefit you. You should not succumb to laziness, boredom, or fatigue. You can strive to maintain your interest, motivation, and energy. Example: in work. You should not depend on salary, career, honor, or power. You can work for yourself, for your pleasure and contribution to society. You should not strive to work a lot or to work little. You can choose the work that suits and satisfies you. You should not succumb to ambitions, competition, or conflicts. You can cooperate, respect, and help others. Example: in relationships. You should not depend on love, friendship, approval, or support. You can love yourself, be self-sufficient and independent. You should not strive to have many relationships or to have no relationships. You can choose the people who are close and dear to you. You should not succumb to jealousy, resentment, or deception. You can learn to trust, forgive, and be honest. This rule will help you to be responsible for your life, because you will do what you want and can, and not what you should or cannot. You will live in harmony with yourself, with other people, and with the world. You will be happy and successful by your own criteria. I have told you about 5 rules that will help you understand the meaning and importance of responsibility for your life. These rules are based on the philosophy of Stoicism, which teaches us to live in accordance with our nature, reason, and virtue. I hope that these rules will be useful for you, and you will be able to apply them in practice. But before we say goodbye, I want to give you some tips that will help you learn and reinforce these rules. Repeat these rules every day, write them down on paper or on your smartphone. The main thing is that they enter your memory and subconscious. Apply these rules in different situations that you encounter in your life. When you face a difficulty, a problem, a challenge, or just want to do something better, ask yourself, which of these rules will help me in this case? How can I use it to cope with this situation? How can I be responsible for my thoughts, feelings, and actions? Share these rules with other people who are dear and close to you. Be an example and inspiration for them. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Experiment, learn. These rules are not rigid and immutable laws, but rather guidelines and directions. You can adapt them to your conditions, your goals, your preferences. You can add, remove, change, combine these rules as you like. The main thing is that they work for you, not against you. That's all, friends. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got some benefit from it. If so, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like, and share this video with your friends. This way you will help us spread wisdom among more people and make this world better. Thank you for your attention, and see you soon.